Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary. How viable is the proposal for a 5-year, $100 billion NATO fund to aid Ukraine and for greater alliance involvement in coordinating weapons deliveries to Kyiv? And is the U.S. willing to or able to contribute fresh money to that if it is a viable option? And then beyond that, is the U.S. among the allies who have committed further searching their own stocks for additional air defenses for Ukraine? And you just mentioned that U.S. policy on Gaza will be determined by Israel's actions in response to these concrete steps you're seeking. Can you clarify what sort of U.S. policy changes we might be looking at? Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney. So first, in terms of funding for Ukraine, the most important, the most urgent thing is getting the supplemental passed. That would be the most immediate and most important source of the additional funds that Ukraine needs to help it continue to protect itself against the Russian aggression. Beyond that, we are, of course, talking to our NATO allies and partners about what they're doing, what we can do, what the alliance can do to make sure that Ukraine has the resources it needs, both in the immediate to address the critical situation now, but also going forward. Because while we're working to address these immediate concerns, we're also working together to build out Ukraine's force for the future, a force that can deter aggression and defend against it if it has to. More than 30 countries now have signed or are in the process of negotiating and signing bilateral agreements with Ukraine. And we're ourselves, the United States, working on our own bilateral agreement. But we're also looking at the role that NATO can and should play over time in supporting Ukraine. And this is an ongoing discussion that we'll have in the weeks ahead. And I imagine that you'll see something at the summit when we come together in Washington in July. In terms of stocks of equipment, supplies, yeah, one of the things we talked about today was everyone going back and taking an immediate and hard look at what can be made available. We know what the needs are: air defenses, artillery, munitions. So I believe, based on what I heard today, that everyone, including the United States, is going to double back and, as necessary, double down on finding the resources that Ukraine continues to need. And with regard to our policy in Gaza, look, I'll just say this. If we don't see the changes that we need to see, there'll be changes in our own policy.
We'll next go to Medea Bagnoli from ANS.